Okay, so we're going to talk about post-traumatic growth, which is an unexpected kind of occurrence that happens after trauma. It's based on the NGSS standard that the idea that group behavior has an effect on individual survival. So this is based on a book called Anti-Fragile by Taleb. I'd never heard about post-traumatic growth before. I decided, hey, it makes sense. I think I've looked at it. I think I'm going to look it up. So here's how I looked it up. Places I researched, PubMed, then I looked for the Cochrane meta-analyses or the summaries of it. There are not a lot of articles. I go onto Google. If I can't find something on Google, I will go for professional websites. And if I can't find something anywhere, I basically just assume the author made it up in their head. So I went on PubMed. PubMed is free to all of us. I type in post-traumatic, growth comes up. There are over 2,000 articles on this. Great. I then type in Cochrane, which gives me the summaries of those articles. There are a lot of articles. Then Cochrane Analysis has about 12 articles, but they're not really great articles. They're comparing any form of psychological intervention, resilience, hardiness, or post-traumatic growth versus no intervention. I'm looking for actually getting better because of trauma, post-traumatic growth, not just resilience, not just like I'm coming back, I'm recovering. No, you feel better because of the trauma. So what do I find? No resilience effect on anxiety during stress, blah, 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 blah. If you have more stress, it actually makes you die faster of cancer, which is reasonable. But these summaries are not really giving me what I want. They're lumping post-traumatic growth with resilience and hardiness and other things, and they don't really know what they're talking about. So I go on Google. PTSD, of course, in the DSM-5, DSM-5, the Bible for our psychological conditions. DSM-5 has PTSD, intense disturbing thoughts or feelings related to your experience long after trauma has ended. Post-traumatic growth is not in the DSM-5. It's positive transformation following a traumatic experience. And then they break it down to 5 domains relating to others, new possibilities, personal strength, spiritual change, and appreciation for life. Kind of crunchy numbers, hard to know exactly how you're going to rate all of these things. So it's a theory that came out in the 1990s. It hasn't really been accepted generally, but it's interesting, and there's articles on it. I can go back to PubMed and look up these references now. So I go back on PubMed, where there is a post-traumatic growth inventory, which we should definitely take in class if we have time. Post-traumatic growth is unfortunately not qualitatively different from non-traumatic events, because sometimes getting cut off in line is the end of the world for you, and sometimes getting cut off in line is not a big deal. So what is a major trauma to some people is not a major trauma to other people. And this continuously comes through. Adaptive and active coping styles do help with growth. Maladaptive don't. No coping style, just ignoring it, sometimes actually leads to growth, sometimes doesn't. Um, though it may seem incompatible, growth and PTSD symptoms do often co-occur. So you can be both traumatized by an event and grow from an event. That's the key, is that it's not going to show up as just growth or just trauma. So it's real, and it's complicated. So core beliefs, if you have those shaken up, it can actually lead to a lot more growth. Moderate intensity of trauma, as opposed to something that just knocks you out of the system for 5 to 10 years, something that throws you off for 5 to 6 months, and then you can come back. That's better. Spiritual coping or positive reframing. There's both spiritual and stuff, but it's how you frame that trauma in your mind. And then also effortful thinking and problem solving, trying to get to the place where you're like, okay, what did this really mean? So how do we make this relevant in our own lives? Well, it turns out that there's very little data on what they're terming sexual minority people. And I apologize if you don't like that term. That's what they're doing in the medical literature. So it turns out people who live in more rural geographic areas, it actually leads to a lot more post-traumatic stress disorder about being a sexually minority person. And that can actually be positively affected by dealing with the fact that it's a major stressor just being that person, and that the social support, the ability to be socially supportive of that person in their coming out process is a significant benefit, lowers their stress levels, and may help them lead to personal traumatic growth. So they may actually be able to help people who are in the coming out process, yourself or myself, to help people be better and feel better about this trauma that is just the act of existing in our lives. So thanks for coming. I hope that was helpful.